There are none. Verbal. Oh, we're on.
Good.
Yeah.
Notice of this meeting was advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Ms. Trueblood? Present. Mr. Cartier?
Present.
Mr. Tompkins?
Here.
Ms. Jackson? Present. Mr. Allen?
Present. This meeting is now called to order. Closed session resolution number 144-2016. This authorizes council to go into closed session. Solicitor, administration, council, do we have any items for closed session this evening?
No, I don't.
No, we don't.
Hearing none. Public comment. This portion of the meeting allows the public to comment on any agenda item or just make a general comment in general.
Man, that was quick. Is that a comment?
Declan, please come to the mic. Is there anyone that has public comment? Chief Augustoni.
Good evening, Mr. President. Craig Augustoni, I'm the Fire Chief of the Pemberton Township Volunteer Fire Department, also serve as the Township Emergency Management Coordinator. With the permission of the Mayor, I am here on official business, so I just want to make that, as our friend Mrs. Stinney would always say, a part of the record. Excuse me while I sign in, because I don't want to be disciplined tomorrow by the Township Clerk's office. I believe this afternoon, or maybe yesterday, you received correspondence from the president of the Pemberton Township Volunteer Fire Company, Jesus Evangelista, who's also a fire police officer, a duly sworn fire police officer with the Township of Pemberton. I'm here to speak on that matter. Some of my comments will be limited due to the fact I do know that there are some legal actions that have been executed and possibly one more that's going to be executed. Jason, he makes a heck of a lot more sense than you do.
I agree.
Can you keep on? Maybe you'll invite me over. As you know, on June 22nd, the township was involved in a very serious incident located on Joint Base. We had a report of a wildland fire which was moving very rapidly towards our mobile home park at Lakeshore. We were requested for mutual aid at first, and then of course the incident then unfortunately escalated that it became part of ours. During that time there were some procedures that were initiated. One is we thought that we were going to have to do a mass evacuation of the Lakeshore Mobile Village. The fire was acting very erratic, perfect fire conditions that day. So we had to make some calls, and as we gathered up at our command post, which was located at the old Acme on Pemberton Browns Mills Road, decisions were made because of the way the fire was acting. Sounds like one of my staff meetings, actually, but the fire was acting very, very erratic, and we had made a decision. We had to go in and do some structural protection to some houses that were tucked away behind the mobile home park. So at that time, I was conferring with the Chief of Police, David Jantis, and a decision was made to shut down Pemberton Brownsville Road with anticipation of a backfiring operation because we were fearful that the fire was going to move in a direction that we believe we were going to have to use that type of a tactic to mitigate it rapidly. And the reason why I'm addressing you on this is that there was apparently, by the communications received by me, a incident involving Councilman Jack Tompkin. Now, before I go into things, I hope that this esteemed body is familiar with Chapter 3 of the Code of the Township of Pemberton. It is the Administration of Government, particularly 3.7, which articulates the duties of council. I went through this page by page to all 12 subchapters, and nowhere do I find anything in there that allows council to be involved in operations, and especially the assessment of damage control or property damage. You read the letter. You know that allegedly that's what was said, and a few things with that. The way this fire department was formed, the way that this government was formed, we have a conduit. Our conduit for us is the mayor of the municipality. At no time was the mayor not advised of what was going on. He was engaged 110%. The chief executive officer of this municipality chose to stay out of the way and let the professional staff handle the incident. Mayor Patriarca decided sometime in there, after probably the fourth conversation I had with him, as things started to become a little bit more dicey and evacuation became much more of a concern with us, I briefed him, and he said he was going to dispatch himself to the ICP, the Incident Command Post, in case some executive decisions had to be made, which according to our former government is the way that plays out. I report directly to the director of the fire department, which is Dennis Gonzalez, who then transmits that information on to the mayor, and then we collectively, and by the way, that is in any capacity, even with very few times if we have a declared disaster, are my powers unchecked, if I could say, use the word. So, and that's to take immediate actions. And I'm sure that the attorney is very familiar with that. So with all that in play, we received a message back at the command post that Councilman Tompkin was attempting to come across one of our designated traffic posts. And by the way, that order to close that road and designate those traffic posts was issued by the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the Township, David Jantis. In these types of scenario, we break off into divisions. He's in groups. He's in charge of that traffic group by nature of his position. So as I said in the beginning, we had that conversation. He concurred. We told him we'd have a smoke problem. There's all kinds of things that could happen. It could possibly impede our evacuation if we had to do it. The chief immediately concurred, dispatched his resources. We relieved those resources, which is our fire police. Under New Jersey Title 15, semicolon 8.4 is what the fire police derive their authority from, and once they are in place, a duly trained and deputized fire police officer is then authorized to perform the duties of a police officer until he or she is subsequently relieved. The picture I'm painting to you is that these fire police officers, although they could work independently, were working under the umbrella of a legally executed order by the chief of police to secure that road. Also embedded in this statute is that we as citizens must obey their direction. If not, we could be ticketed, and the fire police have the power of arrest. And they can hold you until such time as a police officer arrives. I'm not sure what the councilman's intentions were that day. You have a process. The process is to contact the administration, who has an obligation to, I assume, I couldn't find that in there either, to transmit that information. The councilman does not offer any value to me at that scene. I understand his concern. We had evacuees at the Senior Citizen Center. If he wanted to talk to his constituents, he could have done that. The thing that is puzzling to me is the chief executive officer in charge of this municipality chose to obey the detours and take a route that was designated. Didn't even stop, didn't talk to him, nothing. Just continued on and was summoned to the command post. And a few things with that too. I don't know, I wish Mrs. Phillips was here because she could certainly echo this. She's had many, many years of probably almost being hit by a car on Route 70 in those areas. A very, very dangerous job. And when you're communicating to the public, we attempt to do that pretty rapidly because it's called bottlenecking. And it takes the fire police officer away from their critical job, and that's their traffic post. And what was funny is Chief Janis expressed to me that he has been on several traffic posts with Fire Police Evangelista. And he said he's the most professional and courteous person that he knows when he's on those posts. Very helpful to the general public. And was a little concerned as why this even happened. Along with that, when you don't know what's going on, you become a risk. If Mr. Thompson was successful in getting through that traffic post, and we had started backfiring operations, we would have had another issue. We would have not known that he was there, and if we would have received a frantic 911 call from him, we would have had to then place firefighters in jeopardy to make a rescue. We would have had to stop our backfiring operations and change plans. In my opinion, it created an unsafe situation for all of us. One is the command post had to be interrupted to handle with this deal. The chief of police was not very happy. Apparently, somebody's not familiar with their job. So what we're asking you, and why the letter was addressed to you, since you're responsible for these fine folks, is maybe try to ask somebody to use a little bit better judgment. We were very, very upset about it, because once again one is very unprofessional. I was disappointed. This is a representative of our community. And I certainly understand the need for no. I got that. I've been doing this for 41 years. And my boss can tell you, both of my bosses, and Mr. Cardiac can tell you, I'm very good at communicating. I'm very good at keeping those persons that are in need of the no, knowing what's going on. So I'm not sure what council wants to do about this. I do know that we are handling it, and I believe that Fire Police Evangelista has taken care of a few things. I don't want to go into that for other reasons. There are some other options that I believe he's looking at right now. But you folks do a great job for us, and I just believe that he kind of got embarrassed. And I'm still trying to figure out what value Mr. Tompkin thought he was going to offer to us, especially disobeying a direct command and interfering with the operations of a fire police officer. Somebody that he probably voted on to approve. So that concerns me. And to all you, I'll use a little phrase from Chief Brown down in Dallas. If you want to, you can get out of the line and you can join our line. I have an application. If you want to know what's going on, if you want to profess to be a damage control expert or damage assessment expert, I got 2 teams you could get on. You can join us. And with the mayor's permission, I don't know if you want to entertain any questions, Mr. President, but the mayor would prefer that I don't answer any questions. That's my signal. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Seeing no other hands, this closes the public comment portion of the meeting. Consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine by the Township Council and will be enacted by one motion. Should a council member wish to discuss a consent agenda item separately, that item can be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the regular agenda. Council, do we have any items that we would like discussed or pulled from the consent agenda before we move on to other resolutions?
Makes everyone look at me.
$150, 2016.
Any others? Hearing none. Other resolutions. Resolution number 145-2016. I will read this resolution and then request that Ms. Linda Eden come forward to accept her resolution. A resolution of Pemberton Township Council in appreciation of the dedicated public service by Linda Eden. Whereas Linda Eden has served with distinction in Pemberton Township over 19 years, and whereas Linda Eden, during her tenure with Pemberton Township, has given her time and knowledge and service to the residents of the Township of Pemberton. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Pemberton, assembled in public session on the 13th day of July, 2016, that the Township Council does hereby commend Linda Eden for her contributions and dedicated service to the Township of Pemberton. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution shall be presented to Linda Eden on behalf of the Township Council. Council, is there a motion to approve resolution number 145-2016?
So moved.
Second.
Sunshine, please poll the council.
Mr. Cartier?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson? Yes. Mr. Tompkins?
Yes.
Ms. Trueblood?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Ms. Eden, would you care to come forward to? On behalf of the Pemberton Township Town Council, I'd just like to thank you for your commitment, service, and dedication to the township. I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you. Could I have a moment to say something?
Absolutely.
Say something first. Counting for 4 days. Is there anyone from the council that would like to say a few words?
Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Bittersweet, I'm sure.
For those of you that don't know this, when I first started this in 2007, I didn't know all there was to know about being the mayor. Hard to believe. And I still don't.
I was just hoping you would say that.
A good start that I had in learning how to be the mayor, responsibility, came from Linda. When I first came into office, my whole thing was the money, to figure out the money. When I came into office, Linda was dealing with a mess down in her office. Her head was spinning before I even got into office from previous administrations. I got into office and she comes to me saying, well, Mayor, we got to do a budget. I said, okay. It's got to be done in 11 days. Like, 11 days? That's it? You know? Like, okay, how do we do this? Well, Linda and I spent day after day, night after night, stayed hours and hours afterwards, giving me Budget 101. Crunching on it. We did budget.
Yes, they should.
We got it. We put a budget together that surprised a lot of people. We got through that. I couldn't. Alone. years, you threw little hints here and there on ways to get this right, get that right, work this, work that, and it works. And I know you've had a lot of challenges personally that put you in different directions, but that happens. But what you think to me,
Very nice.
I'll tell you, I know it's started. I looked at the budget we're doing today. That is a great act. Came here with so much experience doing this. It seems like it's easy, but I know how hard it is.
Thank you very much. If I can get through this, it's not long, it's very big, so I can read it.
Take your time. Take your time.
I would like to take a moment of council's time to say thank you for recognizing my years of employment with Pemberton Township. I also at this time would like to thank all of the council members that I have had the pleasure of working with over the last 19 plus years. Mayor Kay, former CFO Doug Ayer, for believing in me, Mayor Patriarca for remembering, but most of all I'd like to thank Louise Spigner for taking me under her wing and teaching me a new set of skills when I could no longer be CFO. Thank you to my friends and coworkers I've met over the years. And I am not saying goodbye, I am just saying hello to retirement and goodbye to the time clock. So with that, thank you all, and I really appreciate this tonight. And
Thank
Mayor,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution number 146-2016. A resolution of the Pemberton Township Council in appreciation of the dedicated public service by Arthur Baker. Whereas Arthur Baker has served with distinction in the Pemberton Township Public Works Department for over 21 years. And whereas Arthur Baker, during his tenure with the Pemberton Township, as given of his time and knowledge and service to the residents of the Township of Pemberton. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Pemberton, assembled in public session on this 13th day of July 2016, that the Township Council does hereby commend Arthur Baker for his contributions and dedicated service to the Township of Pemberton. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution shall be presented to Arthur Baker on behalf of the Township Council. Mr. Baker is not present this evening, so our clerk will ensure that Mr. Baker receives the resolution, and we'd like to thank him for his leadership and service to the Township. Is there a motion to approve resolution number 146-2016?
I motion to approve resolution number 146, 2016.
Is there a
Second.
Sunshine?
Ms. Trueblood?
Yes.
Mr. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Tompkins?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Council, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
Sunshine, please poll the council.
Mr. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Tompkins?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Trueblood?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Mr. Cartier, you requested to pull resolution number 150-2016.
Yeah, it's just a question on the site plan that they have here. There's noted a jukebox. Is that jukebox inside or outside the building? It's the very last page.
Right here.
I saw
Thinking inside.
I am too, but
Thinking inside, yeah.
jukebox is written on the outside.
Yeah.
It has a line in the...
Yeah, it looks like they're indicating that it's on the inside.
All right, can we just be sure of that and let them know that we expect it to be on the inside of the building and not on the outside?
Ken, is that because of the noise?
Yes.
There's nothing around there.
Doesn't matter, it's still.
Okay.
It would be something you would have the option to consider on approval, and I would be surprised if they're not going to have a radio out there anyway. They're still required to comply with the noise ordinance.
May I suggest that if you are going to approve it, just say you approve it with the understanding that that depicts the jukebox being inside?
That's all I have. With that, I move to approve as Mr. Gonzalez stated.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Counsel? I'm sorry, Sunshine?
Mr. Cartier?
Yes.
Mr. Tompkins?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Trueblood?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
All the way down to C.
See, right, okay. New Jersey Firemen's Association membership application for William J. Wood. Is there a motion to approve this application?
A motion to approve the application for William J. Wood.
Is there a second?
I'm sorry, I'll second.
Sunshine?
Ms. Trueblood?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Tompkins?
Yes.
Mr. Cartier?
Abstain.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Discussion and possible introduction of an ordinance amending Chapter 142 regulating the placement and use of clothing donation bins. Administration, I guess I have the first question. Can you give us a little background on why we decided to look into and clean this ordinance up?
If I may, generally speaking, not just in Pemberton Township, but in a lot of places, organizations and people just plop down these clothing donation bins anywhere and everywhere, sometimes on public property and oftentimes on private property. And there is a state law which is predominantly what's in the ordinance that was drafted by Mr. Baer reflects the state law authorization for how to manage and control and how to ensure that there is information, primarily for public safety purposes. As you all know, about a year ago, there was a gentleman who suffocated reaching into a clothing bin not too far from here. And we've also noticed clothing bins, as the fire chief has also noticed, that they're often plopped down in places which could impede public safety traffic going in and out, and oftentimes there isn't enough information as to who's responsible for what. So it isn't essentially a solicitation of goods, except it's not a solicitation in person, and that's why it was written this way by Mr. Baer, is to say, yes, this is a type of solicitation, and this is how it should be managed and organized, so that they can only be placed in places that ensures that there is no public safety issue, and also most importantly is to require the owners of bins that are legally placed somewhere to remove its contents on a regular basis, to avoid the situation that we had, which was the death that we had in the past year when someone suffocated because there was too much stuff in there and the person could not get out and his head was in there. So that's the purpose of this ordinance. We ask the council give it serious consideration.
I got one question. It specifically says clothing. There's other donation boxes, correct? Wouldn't we want to open that up to all donation boxes?
only other one that I know of is eyeglasses for the Lions Club.
Yeah, that's like a post office box.
Yeah, other than, I think all the boxes are supposed to be clothing, but people bring everything to them. I think they bring TVs, there's all kinds of stuff gets piled out in front
And
of
I
them.
think that's one that pops to mind. I know it's not in this town, but I think over in Hainesport by ShopRite, there's a
Right.
one for just general anything. So, we could have something like that show up here, so why, if we're gonna do this, why not include that?
Expand on it a little bit to cover that.
I think we can work on the definition to include any other container that where other items may be provided. Anybody leaves a TV or something outside of a container, it's essentially littering. So it becomes a really different issue. In fact, the penalties for that are far greater than this under an environmental statute. So.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I noticed like there's one in the old Acme Plaza that's just there at the corner, and then there's another one at the convenience store where the incident happened, and then two were placed in the new Acme Plaza where it's actually they're very large and says clothing and shoes. So, and I've seen the trucks clearing those up, but I hardly don't see much of the other ones, and I've seen a lot on the convenient farm, the convenience store, where there's things left out and it's not kept up. So would there ever be a limit to how many in the radius of nearby township that could be regulated?
I don't recall that this ordinance provides for a limit as to how many we can get, but the people who own the properties will be responsible for giving specific permission, and will also be responsible, besides whoever owns the clothing bin, to ensure that all the regulations are complied with. So I think the fact that the property owners will have to grant permission and know that there are rules as to how they can be used and what needs to happen will act as a policing function as well, because they won't be responsible. I imagine some of them are saying, this is a good thing, so we're just going to have it here. But if we can manage it the right way, the good thing can still happen, and it can happen in a safer way. And everyone will be aware, not only us from an enforcement side, but the owners of the properties, to make sure their properties look clean and neat, etc.
Thank you.
The only limit, to expand on that, the limitations that are in there right now are in Section 26, which basically talk about you can't locate it someplace that's deemed to be a safety hazard. So if someone came in and asked for a permit and it was someplace that was unsafe, the permit would not be granted. Another one is whether it's within 100 feet of any place which stores or sells fuel or flammable liquids or gases, again because of fire hazard. Or placement where it interferes with vehicular or pedestrian circulation. So it's basically safety, the gas issue, and circulation issues. And that would be dealt with, I guess, when someone applied for a permit. If it was in a place that had any of those problems, that would be a limitation. But otherwise, there's not a limitation on number of bins throughout the township.
So what about a residence?
What's that?
What about if someone wanted to put a donation bin on their property? Is there anything that prevents that?
This is a regulation for the placement of bins on private property,
Right. I don't
not
think it
just public
distinguishes-
property.
Right. It doesn't distinguish between residence versus commercial private property, but this governs all placements of all bins on public or private property. I don't know whether placement of something like that might violate other code provisions because you're operating a residence and using it for something, like I know people sometimes have those dumpstery type things where they use for construction purposes or whatever, and many towns have regulations where you can't just have there sitting there in your yard for like years on end, for instance.
It also may cause a zoning issue.
Correct.
On this as well.
Why was the chief of police chosen as the issuer of permits? It would seem to me that that function would fall better under the zoning office.
Well, it's one. I have sent an email to. Well, I wouldn't say zoning, but what I have sent an email to Mr. Bayer asking him to look at a couple of things, and that is one issue. And my suggestion is that the permits be issued by the clerk's office, but that the clerk's office get the completed application for a permit and provide it to the chief of police and the fire chief in order for there to be an opinion from each of those two entities as to any public safety issues with regard to the location. As to the location, it probably makes sense to have a zoning sign-off as well. So I think those are three things that would be, or should be, conditions precedent to the issuance of a permit by the clerk. So what you have before you is not the final version as we would recommend, because Mr. Bayer is still taking a look at these other issues, and I would suggest that be added as well. And then perhaps a final version be provided to the council for the next meeting.
For it to potentially be introduced.
Or it could be introduced, and if there are any additional questions about any changes in the language or additions in the process of issuing the permit and who has to provide an okay, a review and permission in a sense.
But that should be included before a council entertains introducing it.
Yeah, I would say, I would suggest that the council not introduce it as this is something that is a long time in coming, hasn't been addressed. I think let's get it right in the language that everyone is really comfortable with and you're comfortable with, and then we'll get it before you.
I have, on page 4 of it, letter A at the top, it says a statement on the manner in which the person has blah blah blah. Can you tell me what manner in which the person, or is that just?
It may just be typographical. I think it should just be a statement on the manner in which the person has used solar dispersed, and it's just too, it looks like a typo to me.
All right, and then on page 6, is that also a typo? Because I'm sure the penalty is not $20,000.
I think it says up to.
Actually, that's not a typo.
Up to 20,000?
It's not a typo, because that is a statutory provision for a specific kind of violation.
Okay.
It's not for a violation of the ordinance generally, but a specific type of violation that is set forth in the statute. And it is $20,000, because I had the same question and I looked at the statute.
Wow. Okay.
I have two things. Does anyone else have anything? On page 4, the same page that Letha mentioned, is the $25 renewal application fee, is that in addition to the $25 annual permit fee?
So in other words, would the first year be $50? Is that what you're
No,
asking?
I think it's $25 for the application fee.
So if someone's application expires, or they don't do what they're supposed to do by, submitting a permit, if it expires, do they have to pay 25 and 25, or is it just 25?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean an application expires. Someone will make an application, they will pay the $25 and complete the application. If the permit is granted, the permit is granted and the 25 has been paid. If the person does not complete the application, at some point it's just in limbo because no action will be taken on the application. It is an annual payment, yeah. It is an annual payment.
Payable by the end of January, just like
Yeah,
dog licenses.
yes.
Maybe that should be handled, such as the dog licenses are, each month that you're late in filing for your permit renewal. There's an additional charge of whatever.
I think if you note that down as to some provision as to penalties for lateness once the original one has been granted and it's there, yes.
On page 5, the revocation of permit, 142-28, 142-28. what happens if a permit is suspended?
If I may, I don't know it says township committee, but I don't think that that's correct since we don't have a committee. And my suggestion is that there be an administrative process here as opposed to the council participating in an administrative process.
But I guess that should be mentioned, what the process will be if a permit is if a permittee is suspended for 2 weeks, what will be the process?
Plus, I guess there's also the issue if they're suspended, but the bin is still sitting there. If it's terminated, then it's easy, get the bin off. But if it's suspended and not terminated, what happens? Is the bin locked so people can't use? What happens?
Well, I think that makes sense that we take a look at that.
Okay.
My sense is I don't see how you can lock these bins.
Yeah.
It may have to be removed, so that's something to consider, and I think we can put together some language and come back to council with that as well.
Okay.
And if it is removed, at whose expense?
The owner.
The owner.
Not ours.
Okay.
Right.
That one I can tell you right now.
Make sure. That needs to be in there too then.
And then one more question on the same page. Under 142-30A,
30-day complaint.
okay, so A, it says, where it says Township Council is not requested within 45 days, the bin will be seized. Should it say seized by the appropriate municipal agency, just like it says in the paragraph below it in B?
Yeah, I think we can take a look at the language, but I think the seizure is implied that it's the licensing agency. But we can play with the language to make it as clear as possible.
Okay.
And you're just concerned that A and B may not be consistent.
Right, they don't jive.
Okay. Got it.
Council, are there any more questions or discussion?
That's all I had. Yes.
Okay, so we will move on to discussion and possible introduction of an ordinance amending Chapter 182-31 to establish a no parking area on a portion of Yale Road. Again, administration, was there anything that sort of brought this on?
Been actually brewing for quite some time. I've gotten calls from the owners of the apartment complex. Can you turn your mic on, please? I've gotten calls from the owners of the apartment complex for several years that this area creates a serious problem for students with buses that were getting picked up, but now we're a walking district there, so it's not as much of an issue with the buses as it is now with individuals that still have to exit that driveway coming out of the apartment complex, and then you have vehicles that are parked on that side of the road, and the roads aren't that wide there anyway. When you get vehicles parked on both sides of that road, and you basically have one lane down the center coming out of that driveway, exiting that parking lot, which has a lot of residents. There's probably 300 units in there that actually more. I think goes up to 400 and some. But they're coming out onto a road in one lane on that side that still has a lot of traffic on it. That's a main road being used coming in off of Vincenttown Road. So it creates a site triangle issue at that location, and we have gotten requests from residents to address that.
Can I?
Go ahead, Jack.
I had mentioned to Letha, I live over there, and I actually use this road every now and then, and I used it today as a matter of fact. And now that you explain what's going on, and Letha had mentioned a couple things, I kind of have a better understanding, because when I drive by there, it doesn't seem to be an issue. But I have driven through some areas of Lake Valley there, and as you said, it is very, very congested. Or even a tractor trailer and the car on the other side, and that happens over there. And I'm kind of wondering if instead of doing something like this, we might want to look at maybe putting one-way roads in there, and it might ease some of the congestion or traffic flow.
That would force all the incoming traffic into the development into the one other,
Two.
well, if you came in off of Vincenttown Road,
You would have to come in University.
you would have to come in University
Right.
if you made Yale out to Vincenttown Road only, and then you would force everything onto University, as opposed to someone that lives right there. The road can handle the traffic, and it can handle the parking actually, for the most part, because it is 25 mile an hour, so it does slow you down when the road narrows with the cars on both sides. It generally slows most people down. It's actually a proven traffic calming device when you make your road lines narrower to 9 foot instead of 10. But it's that one spot that, it's not the whole road that we want no parking on, or that the concerns are coming from the residents. It's just that one spot to accommodate this high-density residential zone of this apartment complex where you're getting a lot of vehicles that are coming out of there.
Right.
And-
Well, we have the same problem on a lot of the other roads, though. Like I said, with the parking on both sides, you can only really get one car down through there.
traveling down it, but you don't have somebody pulling out onto that road there, and that's where the difference comes in. Here you now not only have the issue of, the tightness in traveling the road, but you're now trying to pull out onto it with that, and, then now you actually have to pull out into the road to see what's coming. So, it's always been a concern.
So I was out there, and there's actually a very faded sign that actually says no parking. How come this area wasn't already added to the list if there's already a no parking sign out there? I mean, the sign is very faded. I had to get up on the sign.
If there's a no parking sign out there, it's not reflected in an ordinance, which means that if someone got a ticket for that, they could win in court. I've
Okay.
done that.
Well, we might want to look into that because the sign is...
Well, the sign's gonna, if the sign is there, it's gotta come down because we'll
I think I saw it too.
we'll be putting new signs up as to where.
Yeah, it says, so it says no parking between signs, and there's only one sign. I went back and forth trying
So
to find the other
definitely, we would
side.
like to definitely think it wasn't from us.
One way to generate revenue.
I live in that area, and I'm absolutely for this ordinance because it is dangerous, and add snow to that factor with cars. You can barely get out from the apartment section, so I'm for it, but we didn't make a vote yet.
So, what does council wish to do for this ordinance?
I have a question. Are there residences along Yale opposite
One or two.
the apartment complex?
Up until the complex, there's residents on both sides, but when you get to the complex itself, then you have the driveway and then a open field on that side.
Right, I understand on the apartment side what's over there.
Right.
I'm asking, are there houses that abut, or that front Yale on the opposite side of
I think there's one over there, Ken. This is between Colgate and
Amherst.
Between
Amherst.
between Colgate and Amherst.
I think there's one house there.
At least, yeah.
At least one, that way.
And as a matter of fact,
Maybe two.
I might be wrong, but I think there's a designated handicap for resident sign there at that house.
Maybe.
Does it need to be both sides of the street? Can it just be the apartment complex side that there's no parking on?
It's certainly, we certainly need at least one side. The thinking for both sides was primarily because of both the ingress and egress from the apartment complex, and if there were fewer properties, buildings there, I would assume that they have their own driveways as well So,
My concern is, and that's why my question of the residents on the opposite side of the street, they have visitors. Where are these visitors supposed to park?
down the street,
I was going to say, you can park down the
which is what usually happens
That
in
happens
a lot of other
in
places.
Trenton and Philadelphia. That doesn't happen in Pemberton Township.
It's
You can fit
Well, the
more than
apartment
one car in the
complex should have a
driveway.
visitor's lot, right?
I think they do.
I mean, most apartment,
I think the problem is most people, if you live on this side, if this is the street and you live here, you don't want to park back, so they park on the street so they can just walk up and get to their house. I agree with you. I would tend to say that, there's
Well,
enough parking. Nobody just doesn't want to park far away to walk to their house.
but you're talking about
But you're talking about
apartment.
houses.
They're residential houses.
I'm talking about the residents,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
single-family homes, not.
But the one home I'm thinking of is on like a corner, so they have more parking that faces the apartments, if that's what you're talking about. That house is on the corner. The other one, to my knowledge, is not on the corner. I don't even know if anybody lives there right now, but
No, they can't
I
say
think
that.
it's worth having the ordinance, because think about it, it's probably less people that's going to need parking for having visitors at time here, there, opposed to all the cars that are parking on the apartment side. But that's just my view.
The more I think about it, the more I think just one side, University Apartment side.
And
I'm
you
sure
might
one
want
side
to
is better than
consider
none, but-
on the other side, limiting to maybe 100 feet each way. At least giving a clearing of a certain amount of feet, whether it's 100
No.
feet each way, 75 feet each way.
Isn't that you're a retired cop, isn't there a law that you gotta park so far away from an intersection? Okay.
Yeah,
That might not be
I'm not
enough.
sure exactly what it is, but yeah, you might want to consider, opening a little gap there of no parking, and then on the other side, if you want to allow parking after that, but just give a certain zone, and then on the apartment side, maybe have no parking on the apartment field side, of College, and then a certain distance on the other side, at least maybe up to the alleyway. I think there's an alleyway that comes out behind the parking
It is.
apartments there.
Mhm.
Maybe if you take it down to there, to that section, that would open a clear view going down. Yeah, everyone would like to be able to drive down all those roads in Lake Valley and not have to hold white knuckle to the, wheel because of what's parked on the sides and somebody's coming at you. But that's not gonna, you're not gonna do that with all the roads over there. There's no way you can avoid parking on the roads. So, but this is a hazard
So
of entering into a road. We want
Mayor,
to correct.
you're saying, have it limit the parking on the parking side to where again? On the apartment side to where?
Even if you only took it down to past the other side of the alleyway,
Okay.
comes in
Where no parking
in the
on
back
that-
there on that
okay.
side, on the apartment side, and then maybe, all the way down to College on the apartment side. But then on the
Also just
opposite
that
side of
strip.
the street,
Okay.
just limit that, to an equal part on each side so that you've created at least both sides no parking in a certain
that
section
section.
that opens up that area for coming out of the, because the concern was coming out of the apartment complex
Yep.
and coming into the apartment complex. It wasn't as much driving down the road, because that's on all the roads over there.
Right.
So to fix the problem of the entering and exiting the apartment complex, I would zone in on that particular area,
Visibility.
and then, leaving the rest of the apartment complex side going down to College, running from the corner in.
Yeah, I have no concerns with the apartment complex side. I mean, they have parking built into the complex.
Right.
My concern is the residential.
And this should still leave them a couple spots
Yep.
to the corner. I'm not sure exactly what the distance is from, we'd have to look at that from coming out of the complex up to college, but it may only leave 1 or 2 spots, but it would leave a spot or 2 on that side, and then the other way, you'd only go so far just down, where it's safe.
If that's the case, how about on the opposite side of the street from the center point of, because I need markers to be able to write this, from the center point of the ingress and egress that's across the street from the complex. Just tell me how many feet in either direction, 75 feet, 100 feet? Which is what the mayor was talking about.
You visualize telephone poles, they're generally 100 feet in most cases in developments and so forth. They're generally 100 feet apart. And Ken, your survey, you know distance as well as anyone. You've done it enough times. It's not, they may not be exact, but that's pretty close to where they put poles. So that would give you plenty of room if you're looking left and right of no parking to say, I can get out of here safely.
Just leave that whole area.
Make your question again, Dennis. I'm sorry.
What we're talking about is changing the no parking distance across the street from the entrance to the apartment complex. As it's written now, that's a distance of 272 feet from one road to the other. So in order to ensure that there's turning radius coming out of the complex across the street, instead of having it be 272 feet of no parking, if you pick an amount of footage, then we can put it on both sides of basically the driveway that's across the street. So it could be 75 feet from the center line of the driveway that's across the street in one direction or the other. That would give you 150 feet of clear space in addition to the no parking on the apartment side. And then it gives back essentially, 122 feet of parking.
I see what you're saying now. And to answer that question, I think 50 feet either side of the center line of the driveway would be sufficient, because, a car is at most 20 feet long.
Whatever the council decides is a reasonable amount, I change the ordinance, and so, as I understand it, the understanding is to keep the no parking at the same distance on the apartment complex side, and then you'll give me a distance across the street.
Yes.
Really would.
Amherst is right there, so on the opposite side of the street, if you kept that starting point at Amherst and went to College, you could pick a certain amount of feet past the apartment complex entrance towards College and cut it off there.
Amherst to College is actually just nothing but open field on that one side.
That's 272 feet. That's where the number came from.
On the apartment.
On the apartment side,
On the
right.
apartment side, right. And that's the side the exits on for the apartments. That's where the problem is.
That's where the issue is.
So it's the opposite side of the street that now I think we had no problem with closing off parking on the apartment side, but if we're going to do it on the other side, also to give you that open view both ways, so that the cars traveling, say, from Vincenttown Road aren't encroaching in towards the complex closer, and they're staying further away, then you could start it at Amherst, which is right there off to the right coming out of the complex, keep them both sides at Amherst, and take the apartment complex all the way to College, take the other side just past whatever distance you decide past the driveway coming out, so that you have at least a clear section for people to come in and out of there, with no obstacles in that area. But Amherst would be a good point to start because it's right there.
It's right there.
It's a known location.
What was it, like I said, we just looked at the map, what was identified in the initial thing here, Amherst and Colgate, that is the focal point of where the problem is.
So what are we proposing? Are we holding off?
Well, I guess Dennis needs direction